How's it going? This is TheOneJame, and today we're going over Innistrad Crimson Vow spoilers, day number 5. There's 26 whole brand new cards for you to enjoy. We're going to go ahead and get started with the first one starting right now. It is Headless Rider. It is a 2 and a black zombie. Whenever Headless Rider, another non-token zombie you control, dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. So this is actually really good insurance for board clears, unless there's a Shadows verdict. But I feel like this card gets seen a lot of play. We already have Undead Augur, which is a card that says when your creatures die, draw a card. This specifically says non-token zombie, so it doesn't work with decayed zombie tokens, but it still makes other zombies when this or another zombie dies. So this is gonna see a lot of play in a lot of formats where zombie deck can be a thing. Gonna see a lot of play here. Moving on to Gloria Sunrise, it's a 5 mana enchantment for double green. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose one. Creature you control get +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. That's pretty important. Target land gets tapped, add triple green until end of turn. Draw a card if you control a creature with power 3 or greater. That's also good. Or you gain 3 life, which could be relevant at some point. You can Festival into this. So in Permanence Matters decks, you can play this. But when is this card better to play than just a Ren and 7 standard? I'm not sure. But giving your creatures get +1/+1 and trample is really big deal. I can see this being in this sideboard against decks that you really need that trample damage against. So I don't think this is that bad. It does draw cards, so it replaces itself. It is a big mana investment, though. So I think this is just a card that could be really, really good or unplayable, and I think there's probably no in between. Moving on to Voltaic Visionary. It's 1 and a red for a human wizard. Tap it, have Voltaic Visionary deal 2 damage to you. Exile the top card of your library. You can play that card in this turn. Play only whenever you cast a sorcery. When you play an exiled card with Voltaic Visionary, transform it. Transforms into the other side, which is a Voltaic Berserker, human Berserker, and it can't block as a 4/3. But it's a 2 mana 4/3 on the other side. 2 mana 3/1, then you have to wait, then you have to tap it, and then you can play a land from it, but you can play a land and then it transforms as a 4/3 tap. Interesting. So you play it on turn 2. You can't attack with it on turn 3 because you have to tap it, and then you can't attack with it as a 4/3 until the next turn after that. It does create card advantage, but I think I'd be more excited with this card if it didn't have to tap itself, or if it had vigilance. Moving on to Alluring Suitor is a 3 mana 2/3. When you attack with exactly 2 creatures, transform Alluring Suitor. Well, it includes itself, so not that hard to do. It turns into Deadly Dancer. It is a vampire with trample as a 3/3. Whenever this creature transforms into Deadly Dancer, add 2 red mana. Holy crap. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases then. Alright, so you attack with this and one other creature. It transforms as a 3/3 trample, which is good. Add 2 mana. You can pay the 2 mana that you just added to have itself and another creature get +1/+0 till end of turn. Yeah, say you play this on turn 3, and then on turn 4 you attack with 2. If you hit your land drop, you can play a 6-drop. If you don't hit your land drop, you can play a 5-drop. Goldspan Dragon or something. This ramps and buffs itself and has trample. This might be playable. There's a lot of cards in the 3-drop slot that can be played, but this card might even just go in some kind of mid-range rampy deck. But card seems okay. But I mean, Reckless Stormseeker is a card, so you have to choose between one or the other, or maybe play both. To the Knight, the 3 and a red sorcery becomes Knight. Discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards +1. Okay. At 4 mana, though, I mean, turning into Knight is pretty good. Discarding any number than drawing that many +1 is good, but it's only a sorcery. It's also 4 mana. And if you care about day and night, you're probably playing creatures. You probably don't want to be playing a sorcery that draws cards using all of your mana on a turn, like a chariot or a dragon or something. So yeah, I don't think this card's very playable, but I mean, you can probably make it work if you're playing like a non-creature based deck that deals with day and night. Maybe if you have like a Celestis or something. Sanctify, 1 and a white sorcery, destroy target artifact or enchantment, you gain 3 life. I don't know if this is a reprint or not, but I think we've had a lot of effects like that. It's a sorcery, which makes it a lot worse. Probably limited. Enrique Domnathi. This actually card reminds me of Rankle. So if you like Rankle, make sure you will listen to this. 2 and 2 black, just like Rankle. Mythic rare, just like Rankle. It's a 1/3 instead of a 3/3, but hold on. Has flying. At the beginning of a combat on your turn, choose one that hasn't been chosen. You get to pick 3 options, just like Rankle too. Each player sacrifices a creature, just like Rankle. Draw a card and lose a life, kind of like Rankle. Or transform Enrique Domnathi. It transforms into a 3/4 with flying, death touch, and lifelink. Okay. You can pay 1 and 2 black each creature you control with flying, death touch, and or lifelink. In itself, of course. It's +1/+0 till end of turn. So it could be a 4/4. You can also use this more than once. What do you call this? Vampire breathing. Also, it doesn't have to attack. It literally just says at the beginning of combat, choose one. You can literally just play this as a 4 mana 1/3 and then transform it immediately if you want to. So, or you can make a player sacrifice or draw a card, which is very, very good. Paying 4 mana for a 1/3 and then choosing to draw a card, and then the next turn choosing to make it a 3/4 with flying, death touch, lifelink is pretty good. Or sacrifice a creature, whatever. I think this card sees play. Probably underrated. I think it's pretty good though. But it's only because you get the ability without attacking first, and on the first turn it gets played. If you play it before combat. Moving on to Weaver of Blossomist, is a 2/3 human werewolf. Add 1 mana of any color with Daybound. And then it transforms its nighttime as a 3/4 for 3 that adds 2 mana of any one color. We've had effects like this before, obviously not in a werewolf, but 3 mana for a mana dork is a little bit too expensive, especially because on turn 3 you want to be doing things like a secret chariot. But maybe you go from 3 to 5 and go from Weaver of Blossoms into Ren and 7 if you're playing a ramp deck. But other than that, if there's not something that's totally dedicated on 5 drops, I think this card is just for limited. Alright, moving on to Edgars Awakening. The 5 mana for double black sorcery. Turn target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. Okay, so this goes in our Sultai Reanimator deck that we were talking about in a previous video. If you haven't seen those, make sure to check out numbers 4, 3, and 1. Also, whenever you discard Edgars Awakening, you may pay 1 black mana. If you do, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. Wow, this is like really, really good for Reanimator. Wow. This is actually really good for Reanimator. I don't know how you're going to discard this card if you're playing Sultai. But like, if you're playing Blood Tokens or whatever, you can definitely discard this card. Play a back mana, add it back, and then add a creature back to your hand. Or you can just play this, return a creature from grave to battlefield. We already know that there's a lot of like 7 mana huge slugs and stuff like that reanimate. You can also like Oma. We haven't talked about that yet. There's a Sultai Reanimator deck that you can just Oma and then reborn it back with Edgars Awakening, or you can discard this card with a different effect and then add any creature back just in case like you need something to cast in your hand. Like this is, I think this card's pretty good. In a Reanimator deck. Moving on to Patchwork Crawler is 1 in a blue zombie horror. Pay 2 in a blue. Exile target creature card from your graveyard and put a 1/1 counter on Patchwork Crawler. Kind of like a really bad Scavenging Ooze. Patchwork Crawler has all activated abilities of a creature exile with it. Okay, well that part's good. It's a worse Scavenging Ooze in that it costs 2 extra mana to utilize the ability, but it gains all the abilities of creatures exile. So you could technically play this in your Sultai Reanimator deck, and then and then get a huge creature in your graveyard, and then just play Patchwork Crawler and copy it. That's pretty cool. All right, moving on to Honored Heirloom is a kind of artifact. You can tap into add a mana of any color, so really good and limited, especially for splashing colors. You can pay 2 and tap it to exile a card from a graveyard. Okay, I think this is actually really, really good, and this is good for Commander. Like, having graveyard exile in your mana rock is really good for Commander. And also good for limited. Exile a werewolf, it only gets the activated abilities from the top creature, right? That is correct. Moving on to Stenzia Uprising. Now, there was an uprising in my Discord about that. If you'd like to join the Discord, the link will be down below in the description. There's an uprising about this card in the Discord yesterday. 2 and 2 red for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 red human creature token. Then, if you control exactly 13 permanents, including lands, you may sacrifice Stenzia Uprising. Do it deals 7 damage to any target. So, the argument to this be how viable is it to have 13 permanents? What deck would utilize this card, and how would you utilize this? I was saying that you could potentially use this in a mono red deck or red based color deck against other control decks, making a 1/1 red human creature token every time powerful. And if you happen to have like 12 lands, this Stenzia Uprising, or 11 lands, this Stenzia Uprising, and the 1/1 that it creates on end step, just dome your opponent for 7. Which could definitely happen in control decks, but probably not gonna happen. The 7 damage is kind of like a meme effect, but like making a 1/1 at the end step every turn for 2 and double red for an enchantment is pretty good against control, especially since blue, black, and red decks can't get rid of this unless they counter it. Take that as you will. Moving on to Hero's Downfall, this is a reprint. It used to be a rare. It is downgraded to uncommon because of power creep, but it's 1 and double black for an instant. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. So there you go. Hero's Downfall will be in standard in Innistrad Crimson Vow standard. Basically Murderous Rider, but a little bit worse. Hero's Downfall is a great card. Just destroy a creature or planeswalker. I don't know if Infernal Grasp is better or not in standard, but if you're playing a meta with a bunch of planeswalkers, I don't know, like Renin 7, different things like that, then maybe this card becomes better. I think this card might actually be better in Historic than it is in Standard, but definitely a very powerful card. Moving on to Dreadful Service is a 2 and a black for an enchantment. It's a rare. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. It really triggers only 1 turn, so this could go with our cool little discard reanimator deck, or little Sultai discard reanimator deck that we're kind of theory crafting in our head. Making 2/2 black zombies, they notably don't have decayed, so that could definitely add up, especially if you play a lot of cards at this. Faithless Looting is in Historic, by the way. You can kind of pair with this. Also, blood tokens also loot as well, so kind of enhances the discard thing. Getting value out of your discards is going to be pretty important in Standard. Markov's Retaliation is 2 and a red, sorcery. Choose 1 or both. Creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. And target vampire you control deals damage equal to its power to another target creature. This is a 3 mana dealing damage to another target. Usually you find this in green, that creatures you control deal damage to another target creature. So it's kind of like a mini overrun with a fight spell, but it doesn't really fight. For 3 mana, this is like pretty expensive. So I would say this is like a limited card, but it definitely is a really, really good limited. Mulch. Pretty sure this is a reprint. 1 under green for a sorcery. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all land cards revealed this way into your hand, the rest into your graveyard. This is also very good for our Sultai Reanimator deck. A lot of times when you want to hit your land drops, you don't want to mill cards. But with Mulch, you get to use this card to mill your cards and then add the lands back and keep everything else in the graveyard. I think this is very good if you want to play a deck like that. Moving on to Belligerent Guest. It is a 3 mana vampire with trample. It's a 3/2. Whenever Belligerent Guest deals combat damage to a player, create a blood token. Period. I mean, this has trample, which makes it better. This having 2 toughness is a lot worse. Being 3 mana and potentially being blocked by a 1 mana creature is not where you want to be. I'm going to say this is more of a limited card. Moving on to Runebound Wolf. It's a 2-mana 2/2 wolf. Why are all the wolves and werewolves so powerful? 2-mana 2/2 with an ability. 3 and a red and tap it. Okay, now it's a little bit worse. Runebound Wolf deals damage equal to the number of wolves and werewolves you control the target opponent. Do I hear Wolf Burn anyone? Wolf Burn? Runebound Wolf is where you want to be if you're playing Wolf Burn. Other than that, pretty good rate on a threat and limited, and can also just dome your opponent out of nowhere. Moving on to Boarded Windows. It's exactly what it says. Board up your windows, and creatures attacking you get -1/-. They kind of have to lift up one piece of the boarded window part. They maybe have to unscrew a screw or get out a nail. That's the -1/-0 part. At the beginning of each end step, if you took 4 or more damage this turn, exile boarded windows. Now, why you play this card over playing like Valkmira, a card way more busted than this? I guess if you're not playing white, but yeah, this doesn't seem very good at all. Moving on to Ancient Spruce, it's 2 and Golgari, so 4 mana. For a 1/4 creature tree folk. Each creature you control with toughness greater than its power deals combat damage equal to its toughness instead of its power. So maybe you have a 4-color walls deck that you want to play Ancient Spruce in. This card specifically does deal 4 damage as a 4-drop. Pretty okay and limited. If it had Vigilance or something, I'd be more excited. But this card's a little... Moving on to Thirst for Discovery. Is it 2 and a blue? There's a lot of thirst fors. The thirst for meaning. There's a thirst for whatever other card you want to, whatever other word you want to use. There's a thirst for it. This is a Thirst for Discovery. 2 and a blue instant. Draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard a basic land card. Now, you do have to play a lot of basic lands to make this card work, but it is drawing 3 cards for 3 mana as an instant, which is pretty okay. I think this will see play. Think about it. In this Sultai deck that we're talking about, you can Thirst for Discovery and discard your 2 bombs, and then bring your bombs back. You draw 3 cards. This is going in our Reanimator deck. Moving on. Blood Vial Purveyor. 4 mana, 5/6. Now, I think this card's one of the best cards in the whole set. It's 4 mana, Vampire, Flying, and Trample. Now, there's a little bit of an errata on this card already. Let me tell you what this is. You're going to want to listen to this because you can't find this. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, any spell, that player creates a blood token. So you give your opponents blood tokens, which isn't very good. But it's a 4 mana, 5/6 Flying Trample, chat. Whenever Blood Vial Purveyor attacks, it gets +1/+0 for each blood token defending player controls. Now, notably, this card does not stay until end of turn. Okay? So you would think that it's permanent, right? Wrong. The Oracle text for this card will say until end of turn. So you play this, your opponent casts a spell, they make a blood token. Whenever you attack, you get +1/+0 for that blood token they have. This is a 6/6 Flying Trample for 4 mana at that point. And then it will go back to being a 5/6 on your opponent's turn, okay? It's not permanent. But I think this card is really, really good. But then again, Hero's Downfall just got reprinted, so let's hold our horses for now. Moving on to Honeymoon Hearse. It is a 2 and a red artifact vehicle with Trample as a 5/5. Tap 2 untapped creature control. Honeymoon Hearse becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So literally, this just has crew for 2 creatures. Very, very good, especially if you're making little baby 1/1. It is a 5/5 trample, which is really powerful. Imagine playing a 1-drop and then playing like a Ranger class or something on turn 2. Then playing Honeymoon Hearse on turn 3. Now on turn 4, all you have to do is tap your 2 creatures or play another creature out of your hand, tap the 2, attack with a 5/5. And then upgrade the Ranger class. Now it's a 6/6 trample. Opponent has to beat that. That's pretty good. Moving on to Parasitic Grasp. It's a 2-mana instant. Cleave for 3. If you don't play the cleave cost and it's just 1 in a black, Parasitic Grasp deals 3 damage to target human creature. You gain 3 life. So only 3 damage to humans, and you gain 3 life. So Lightning Helix for humans, that bad of a sideboard card, since there's a lot of humans in the format. Luminarch Aspirant, just to name one of them. In mono white, there's a billion humans. Not only Luminarch Aspirant that I just said, but Elite Spellbinder is a human. Let's see. The werewolf that exiles creatures. Brutal Cathar is what I'm talking about. There's a lot of cards that are humans. All the werewolves are humans. This works against Werewolf Pack Leader. This works against a lot of cards that you don't think are humans. All the werewolves are humans. So, Lightning Helix, very strong, powerful card. Parasitic Grasp, if you pay 1 and 2 black, so basically just Hero's Downfall mana, it deals 3 damage to any creature in your game. This card will be insane in the sideboard against humans decks, and maybe even you're okay with paying 3 mana for this, just paying its cleave cost in some kind of Grixis control deck or something. Usually one of the problems with Grixis is it struggles to gain life, and card will do that for you. Wandering Mind. Is it 3-drop? Your horror, it's a 2/1 with flying. When Wandering Mind enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land card from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay. This card is just a way better Bolus, whatever it's called. Something of Bolus, 2-mana 1/3. It looks at the top 3 and adds 1. This card looks at the top 6. And it's a flyer. That's a lot. Yeah, this is like an Augur of Bolus on steroids. And Augur of Bolus is already really a pretty good card. I think this card sees play. I mean, this card's kind of unassuming and maybe underrated. I think this card might actually see play. Being like a Delver of Secrets type of deck. I don't know. Moving on to a Reckless Impulse. The last card is a 2-mana sorcery. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Till the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. Period. That's pretty good. This is kind of, little bit, kind of, sorta, like an expressive iteration for non-blue decks. Which, anything that's kind of, sorta expressive iteration is a pretty good card. Exile, it's not the top 3, it's the top 2, and you can't add 1 into your hand for later. But you can use them on your next turn, unlike expressive iteration. It's kind of like Light Up the Stage, but you don't need to actually deal damage for it. So, like, this definitely... There's a mono red deck, especially with that Chandra that I was talking about back in episode number 2. If you want to go back and look at that, what that Chandra does, feel free to go look at that. But, between that Chandra and this card and a bunch of really powerful red cards that we've seen and we already have in standard, I feel like mono red is an actual deck now. But other than that, make sure you do watch those other videos if you'd like. This is the end of this video. Make sure to go check out a video right here if you'd like, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your day.